Hello, everybody. This is Ben Yudishin with Unpopular Front podcast. We have a podcast legend here.
Oh.
One of the OGs of the East Coast leftist podcast scene, right? I don't know. I always feel gross if I say that because it sounds like I'm like being like wistful about like the early 2000s and the Strokes or something.
Right. The knots.
You know?
Is that what they're called? The knots?
Yes, the knots. The not-aughts, yeah. But it's Katie Halper from
Hi.
the Katie Halper Show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to do this.
Yeah, so, I'm continuing on this trend of talking a lot about, like, Jewish identity and the modern political scene.
Nice.
So,
Lot to talk about.
No kidding. You wrote a great piece in Jacobin called Bernie Returns Home to Brooklyn. In your article, you talk about sort of how Bernie's roots in a working class Jewish community with his family background sort of tied with the radical Jewish political tradition,
Right.
or sort of like that is like the core of him as a political person. How do you think that showed up in his Brooklyn speech on last week?
Yeah, I think that it's an interesting tradition because it's both intersectional and Jewish at the same time, which I guess doesn't contradict itself. And, the word intersectional is so abused. It's kind of like the word problematic, but
Right.
It does have real meaning to it. I don't think that Sanders actually would use that word because it's so academic, which is also not his shtick.
No.
Right? So, but it's this weird, and it's not weird. I mean, I went to this summer camp that I don't even mention the article, I don't think, called Kinderland. And I'm re-releasing it, the documentary. It's called Commie Camp. But it's interesting because the camp was founded by secular Jewish-speaking socialists. And the cultural director, the summer I was filming, is a guy named Walter Vega, who is the son of Central American immigrants from Honduras. And
Right.
He talks about how he was asked to be the cultural director, and he said, you remember I'm not Jewish. And then he realizes how actually appropriate it is for him to be the cultural director of this secular Jewish camp because it's so about universalism. And
Right.
when it was founded, from the very beginning, it had non-Jews. But of course, they were mostly kids of color and people of color there,
Right.
And there's this debate over how much the Jewish identity should still be there. And this woman I interview in the film is like, although it's not in the film, I have to add it. But it's like, I think the camp should be for Jews and people of color.
Right.
Not like we don't have to worry about the WASPs.
No, they have so
their own,
many camps.
they have archery too. They'd just be disappointed with my camp. It has like a
Yeah, I
lake
know.
and like
Oh.
you make like what's like arts and crafts or like what's that thing that's actually Shrinky Dink, which I actually really enjoy. So I'm not gonna
Yes.
talk shit about Shrinky Dink.
No, don't talk shit. I actually, because I had known about you going to that camp because you had mentioned it on your podcast.
Yeah.
And I remember because just of where I grew up, I didn't grow up with a lot of other Jewish kids.
Right.
So I would go to their like Episcopal camp.
Oh, that's really funny.
And it was terrible.
Yeah.
We would have like a full like mass every
yeah.
day.
Oh, indeed, yeah. Where you grew
Yeah.
up in Texas? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, in Dallas, Texas.
Right.
So, which there were plenty of Jews. I
Yeah.
just lived in the one part of town where there were not a lot
Right.
of Jews.
And they're like pretty fancy Jews there, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, not
It is
really
a
our
pretty-
kind of Jews. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was always a point of contrast with my family. I mean, I grew up, my dad was very much a fancy Jew, but he also, I sort of think of Bernie in a similar way.
Right.
Maybe that I'm projecting stuff, but he was a bit of a black sheep and kind of always wanted to kind of be a little different.
Yeah.
So, but that universalist tradition is a
Right.
thing that is really beautiful. And I kind of wonder, like, do you think maybe Bernie's sort of upgrading a bit or sort of like trying to tie that, because that sort of identity discourse into it, which I don't have any problem with. I mean, to me, I almost cried when I watched the speech last week, honestly.
I know. And I can't, it's like the hatred lobbed at him. It's just, I don't understand it, honestly. But I think I think it's interesting. I had Khalid Kamau on my show, who is a DSA candidate who ran for and won for city council. Khalid Kamau, who ran in South Fulton City for South Fulton City Council number 6, Georgia. Like you'd know that.
Okay.
I mean, it's like you would know which district. Anyway, but he
Absolutely.
was a DSA guy, and he's black, and he won.
Okay.
And he
awesome.
got Bernie's endorsement. And he said, I remember during an interview that, you know, when he talks about class, when Khalid Kamau talks about class as a black man, it's an explicitly racial argument, or the discourse is obviously linked to racism and anti-racism. Right. And when Sanders does it, it may not come across that way. And I do think that Sanders walks this line, and I think it's a good idea, honestly, which is that, I mean, I don't want to overstate the case, but, you know, talk about I think the way he needs to do it and the way he does do it is, and he said this in 2016, I think the narrative about him not being so good on this is a bit disingenuous because lots of people aren't good on this, and at least his policies on this are good. But of course, we always want to push him, and also we have to be realistic that the entire media narrative is against him. So he has to be very shrewd about this. But I think the way he explained it in 2016, when there was a black Muslim woman, actually, I think it was at George Mason or Georgetown or George W. He was giving some George-based school. He was giving a talk, and this woman raised her hand and asked about, you know, how he was going to deal with the Islamophobia from Republicans. And he did this. He called her onto the stage, gave her the mic, you know, held her hand, and it was not pandering or anything, because the guy doesn't pander. If anything, as we know,
really
one of his problems, is he can be a little crotchety, but he's such a mensch, crotchety mensch, and he held her hand and he said, I'm going to get very personal here. My father's family was wiped out, and he connected anti-Semitism to racism and Islamophobia. Now, I think some people who are mostly disingenuous, although maybe some of them aren't, will dismiss that as trivializing racism or not giving or equating it in a way that's not really doesn't do justice to racism. But I think that it's a great thing to do, and I also think it's very different from the other way that people relate to their Jewish oppression or anti-Semitism or history, and we see this with the discussion around Ilhan Omar right now, which is that they use it to justify oppressing other people, right? They elevate anti-Semitism above human rights of Palestinians, for example. And they have a kind of my Holocaust is worse than yours attitude. And so I think that his connecting different struggles, and I do, there is that whole thing, he doesn't do this, but there's that thing when sometimes Jews are like, we were slaves too, and it's a bit okay, let's not equate those two things. But I think he does it in a way that's really uniting, and I also think the best thing he does, and he did this in that speech when he was talking to that woman, is he says people want to pit us against each other, and Jews and black people, and it's a distraction and divide and conquer thing. And I think that that's a great way to talk about it. And I also think it's a great way to talk about it because it appeals to everyone. It speaks to everyone. It speaks to white people who have been, played and may not realize it, right? I mean, I think that's one of the things we see with Trump is that Trump says to people, I feel your pain. I get why you're angry. He's lying. And then he says, and you should be angry at Muslims and Mexicans. Sanders says, I feel your pain. You should be angry, and you should not be angry at Muslims and Mexicans, but you should be angry at, corporations, income inequality, pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, etc. And he gets an unfair, I think, it's kind of unbelievable to me, but he gets attacked for appealing to would-be Trump voters. And I'm like, do you understand that that's called being competitive?
Right, exactly. The whole point is you get more of the other people. Right,
you want to peel them away from Trump. There's such an ideological purity, which is ironic because it comes from people who will accuse us of having purity politics. But it's do you want to win, or do you want to be able to pat yourself on the back and virtue signal and be a good ally? I mean, and also sometimes it's just people with really crappy politics who weaponize identity politics. And we see this. What's interesting is I kind of want to write a piece about this, which is that there's a parallel between identity politics that are used to justify or cover up kind of neoliberalism, woke Goldman Sachs, as Matt Karp called it on my show once. There's a woke Goldman Sachsism where it's I have friends who are gay, I have friends who are black, like, I can talk about art house films with them. And the weaponization of identity politics and pain and trauma that Israel does. And I've been thinking about this with the whole Ilhan Omar thing. And I've said this before, which is that Israel is kind of the original woke, pseudo-woke,
Absolutely.
right? Because their whole founding was, and it's understandable, that's the thing. It's not like they were founded for some people, for many people, and they were justified, even though they were played too, obviously, because, the British threw them in there, and then they were fighting against Palestinians who had nothing to do with the Holocaust.
Nothing.
But one can understand how their pain kind of eclipsed the pain. I'm not justifying it, but you get how the pain and the fear can eclipse the pain of other people. Now, of course, you have another thing, which is what the Bernie tradition, which is more, I went through this pain, why on earth would I want to inflict it on other people?
Exactly.
But they do the thing where, so they weaponize that pain. Netanyahu does that constantly. I actually interviewed Juan Cole, and we were talking about how Netanyahu, he even tried to work with the Polish prime minister when the Polish had a law saying that it was illegal. You could be sued for saying that the Polish people were complicit in the Holocaust.
Right.
And then
exactly.
Netanyahu spoke out against that, and this is one of these interesting things where you see a clash, because the people who are used to weaponizing anti-Semitism to justify their policies vis-a-vis Palestinians, they're kind of like, all right, this is offensive. There's a lot, Netanyahu is such an opportunist and is so fine and so happy, cuddling up to anti-Semites, because it's not about anti-Semitism. It's about whoever can support Israel existing and oppressing people. But then we also see with the pink washing, right? Israel's it's such a great gay nightlife, and it's the only place in the Middle East where gay people feel comfortable. And we
have startups. There's a Silicon Valley there,
Right, but then also they don't really, Netanyahu just formed a coalition with a terrorist organization.
Right.
Literally.
Yeah.
The people who what's his name? That guy who killed a bunch of Palestinians, he shot them down.
Yeah. I mean, it's the furthest right in a already very right.
Right. And they used to be banned, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the way that Bernie, I think, can sort of use that Jewish identity and how you sort of said it's Jewish and intersectional is that's kind of how I'm trying, because right now I'm noticing I have a lot of people in my life who are I voted for Bernie in 2016, but I'm scared of the bros, and he didn't quote message right on race.
We really have to,
and I'm trying to nip that in the bud, right? Because these people should obviously be supportive of him. If they voted for him last time, he has not changed.
What changed? If you're switching, and Amber Tamlin was on The View, and sorry, but how privileged are you if the thing that's going to convince you to vote for someone or not vote for someone, and how lacking in solidarity are you that you care more about? First of all, it's ridiculous. You were around a campaign. It was running against a woman. There is sexism. There was sexism among his supporters. Guess what, guys? There's sexism among Hillary supporters, racism among Hillary supporters, and it was directed at us. The sexism at me, racism at people I know.
Yeah.
And
you had a lot thrown at you.
Yeah. And we don't get at least those people on the Hillary people, and I don't condone the online abuse that they got. But it kind of actually reminds me in a weird way of the Ilhan Omar thing. I haven't thought about this until just now, but it's the focus on language and feelings. And it's fuck your feelings. Yes. Sorry to say that. I sound horrible, but we're supposed to think of this is white neoliberal feminism. It's saying that I care more about randos online saying obnoxious things to me than I do about the fight for 15. Because I don't actually care about how much women of color, because minimum wage workers, the majority of them are women and people of color, but they would rather, but what moves them politically are these microaggressions. And if only that could be, if only more people had that luxury to be, to have their politics determined by those interactions. And it's so self-obsessed. And it's all, there's just such blatant hypocrisy and all the erasure, that all these things that they like to talk about, erasure and invisibilization. And, I've been trying to get out pieces in a mainstream place on, the Hillary bros or the Bernie bashers who are racist and sexist and homophobic. And it's also offensive.
Or deny his Jewishness.
Oh my God, yeah.
That one really got me.
Yeah.
I have a personal vendetta. I don't think I've actually spoken about it on the show, but Mr. Dante Weeks, he had the same job.
Dane Weeks, yeah.
Mr. Dane Weeks, that's it, Dane Weeks. Dane Weeks, before he became a resistance / Bernie hater guy, he was a nanny.
Yeah.
I'm a nanny. It's like part of, it's very important. So to me, he's my personal enemy. So we need to defeat him.
Well, it's interesting you say that because he is the peak example of what I'm talking about, which is this.
Yes.
He called Bernie Sanders a fake fucking Jew. And then Isaiah Breen, is that how you pronounce his last name?
Mm-hmm.
Who
Issy, I think he goes by.
Yeah, he changed it. He worked for Keith Ellison.
Right.
Okay. He said that it was anti-Semitic. And what does Mr. Dane do? He tweets back, I'm a black gay rape victim. You will not accuse me of anti-Semitism just because I criticize Bernie Sanders. So they do this really tricky thing, and Sally Albright did it too, which is that they say something anti-Semitic, there's pushback, and then they say, oh, so I'm an anti-Semite just because I'm critical of Bernie? No, you're an anti-Semite because, Sally, you retweeted a tweet that said that he was fitting the protocols of Zion, of the Elders of Zion to a T, which she erased.
Which is wrong.
Deleted.
That's not.
Oh, right.
Actually, I know the Elders of Zion. That is the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We're like, I like the way we're nitpicking. We're like, you really got it wrong, anti-Semite. You want some help with tropes? Because we can help you find a better one that fits Bernie better.
I have watched too much Jewish comedy to not at least be able to help a little.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've done that in the past. Someone wrote to me that Jews were like stupid and went to the slaughter like sheep. And next time, real ovens. And I'm like, wait a second. Let's just workshop this a little bit. We're not stupid. Exactly. That's not going to stick because too many stereotypes have been built around how wily and smart and cunning we are. You can't, let's have some like coherence in it too, because you can't say we're both, we went to the slaughter like lambs and also next time real ovens. Either we were killed and cowardly about it or the Holocaust didn't happen. So just trying to help this person refine their anti-Semitism. Anyway. Exactly. But Sally Albright also tweeted, she's so dumb, she's so incredibly stupid. She's like, one day I'm an Islamophobe and then I'm an anti-Semite. It's like, do you get that those things aren't mutually exclusive?
No kidding.
She doesn't, because she's the person who said that income inequality is only a problem for straight white men. The rest of us have bigger problems to deal with. What the fuck is she talking about? Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
It means I don't understand at all how race, gender, and class work. At all.
Or like how money works. Yeah. You need money to do stuff.
Well, you need money to do stuff. And also, who do you think suffers the most from income inequality?
No fucking shit. Yeah, no, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
But yeah. That Dante Weeks thing where he questioned
Dane
his.
Weeks. Now you're going to be accused of erasing him by getting his name wrong.
I'm erasing his name wrong.
Well, I don't want to give this away.
I just think Dante's a cooler name.
It is.
Honestly.
You're trying to give him a cooler name. Okay. Well, I'm working on a piece about, and I think it's going up Monday, and it's about the way the very people who accuse Bernie supporters of being bros, engage in that very behavior or promote them.
So I'm actually curious, how that sort of all these different characters were around in the last primary and now with, Bernie running again, and how I'm noticing how some of these tactics have migrated outside of just this presidential politics. Not that it was just there, but with Ilhan Omar.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing, right? Which is that I interviewed Adam Johnson, who's like a great media critic. And as he said on my show, he's like...
Another Texan.
Oh, yeah, another Texan. Very different Texan from you. But yes, another Texan. Represents the great diversity of your state. He was saying, all the listen to black women people were, as he put it, a fucking no-show, which is true.
Nope.
And because it speaks to the reality, which is that it's listen to black women who have certain politics. And I didn't see any of the people who encourage people to listen to black women encourage people to defend Ilhan Omar. They were just not there. Also, it's so funny to watch them react. It's so funny. They're like, when that study came out about Sanders having more support among black voters than Kamala Harris.
Right.
They're like, oh, but that article was written by a white man. It's like, that doesn't change anything. You're also a white person pointing this out. But it's
also, yeah. No, it's like also like he didn't do all the polling. Like a lot of people did the polling, like
exactly. Right, exactly. I know it's really pathetic. And then it's like, oh, this doesn't matter because it's just horse race stuff, and then they'll point their own poll that because they want to use it.
No, totally.
And I do struggle with. Sorry, I keep cutting you off. Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's that Skype deal.
I know, right? Yeah, and it's women's reparations. But just kidding.
No, oh my God, you're right. I think it is. Is it? Yeah.
But I keep struggling with calling out hypocrisy and at the same time staying focused on the issues, because I can get so deep into the weeds about who is weaponizing this, who is being inconsistent. And I actually think it's important, because I think if we want to discredit these false narrative and very cynical narrative, it helps as like an intermediary step to show that these people aren't in good faith and that they're cynical. And then their ideas, as a result, I think, become more discredited. And that's to reach people who aren't already there. I think it's a baby step. And there's a parallel between that and how we can reach, I think, certain Jews. So I think that there's use, even though I get annoyed by it sometimes, because I don't like the, elevation of Jews or anti-Semitism over other forms of bigotry. But there can be use in saying, look, Netanyahu works with these anti-Semites, and look, this, Joe Lieberman works with John Hagee, who said that Jews deserved the Holocaust, basically. And if we then get them to that disrupts, I think, their moral compass, or whatever the right metaphor would be, recenters their moral compass a little bit. And then I think it's easier to say, once their heroes are not heroes anymore, then it's easier to have them question other things, like maybe it's like not good for us to violate the human rights of Palestinians, or question, unquestioningly support Israel. And I think there's a similar thing with this. If we show, oh, look at this person who says that it's bad for, who criticizes Ocasio-Cortez for stumping for straight white man instead of for a woman of color. It's interesting. Where were they with the Cynthia Nixon thing?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's that much easier to challenge their ideas.
Exactly. You're sort of like, you're just kind of, you're not destroying like the walls that are put up, but you're like slowly breaking them down, which is an important part of politics, and one thing that was nice about Bernie, kind of now getting, having his first few rallies and sort of his new stump speech is, I feel like just watching that, I was like, oh, right, okay, the issues, right. And he lays them out very clearly, and he's still very focused. And like he's just adding some of these things to maybe help make some of these arguments easier for us. But he's still focused on the bigger picture. And I mean, I really think he's gonna win, actually.
I really think he definitely. What I'm afraid of is that there's some Dems lose the primary, and Dems lose the general. Then he win both.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he did get my very moderate stepmom. She's like a Methodist doctor lady. So, that was the happiest text I had gotten in a while. I was like, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Anyways, but yeah, let's get to the Ilhan Omar thing. And to go with that, I'm wondering, did you see any of the clips with Meghan McCain?
Oh my God, literally as you're talking about this, I'm like, I have to admit, I just saw a tweet and I was writing to her, Meghan, please stop explaining to Jews and maybe listen to the one Jewish woman of color co-host on your show.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
It's ridiculous because she went after Ellie Valley.
Just because I don't technically have Jewish family that are blood related to me, it doesn't mean I don't take this as seriously. And it is very dangerous. Very dangerous. And what Ilhan Omar is saying is very scary to me, and it's very scary to a lot of people, and I don't think you have to be Jewish to recognize that.
While the ladies of The View were discussing Congresswoman Ilhan Omar being accused of using anti-Semitic tropes, co-host Meghan McCain, citing Joe and Hadassah Lieberman as being like family, ramped up her passion for the topic.
I take the hate crimes rising in this country incredibly seriously, and I think what's happening in Europe is really scary. And I'm sorry if I'm getting emotional, but I was very nervous to talk about this on the show because I thought it would become politicized, and it really shouldn't be.
Some viewers on Twitter supported Megyn and fellow host Joy Behar, who was in agreement. Thank you for speaking up for Jewish people and Israel in this terrible, scary age of rising anti-Semitism. Others said Megyn had fake tears and that she was using them to win an argument like a child. And many enjoyed co-host Sunny Hostin's response to Megyn.
I'm tired of the selective outrage, and I hope that we have a joint resolution, perhaps, from Republicans and from the Democrats. I would be in favor of a joint resolution.
Speaking of joints, I wish I had one right now.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Ellie Valley, I mean, there's a lot of different kinds of Jews, but he is very, come on, give it, Yeah. It's very interesting to me just to see how much she, in particular, has really grabbed onto this sort of anti-Semitism scourge that is apparently on the left and is only on the left. Like, it's very similar to what was going on with Jeremy Corbyn, but probably with even less reason,
Right.
And I'm wondering do you think it's going to work for them to kind of try to weaponize anti-Semitism when they're so goddamn goyish? Like, she is the epitome of the shiksa to me. Like,
oh my gosh, she couldn't be more shiksa. Also, I'm going to actually, after I talk to you, I'm talking to Max Blumenthal because he's an expert in this kind of Christian Zionism. And, Meghan McCain, her father's advisor was this guy Hagee, Pastor Hagee, John Hagee. And Joe Lieberman, I have to check with Max, but I don't think he ever disowned him or disavowed him. And, he's a major anti-Semite. And all these Christian Zionists want Jews to go back to Israel where they can either convert or burn in hell. For all eternity. So it's really offensive. And, there is this dangerous thing in listen to X, listen to Y. Yeah. I'm sometimes uncomfortable saying as a Jew, but I do think it's kind of like what I was saying, baby steps. And we can reach certain people who, unfortunately wouldn't take it as seriously as if it came from a non-Jew. And then again, my hope though is the ultimate aim is that once they hear us with less defensiveness or more openness, then they'll hear us making the point, guess what? Like, non-Jewish lives matter too.
Right.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm curious though. So, it kind of seems like the grassroots pressure with Ilhan Omar is kind of working at least a little bit. Like, I've been getting a lot of messages from all the different left-ish, not just leftist, Jewish political groups being like, we beat them, victory.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm wondering, is this just going to come back though?
I think
I feel like there's a target on her.
I think it's important to represent it as a victory, but I also think that there is still a major injustice in the way it happened, and there still is a total elevation of Jewish lives over non-Jewish lives. And there's so many things that were so much worse that people ignored. And that's still a problem. So we have to address that, but we also have to, I'm blown away by how much she achieved, honestly, and how much she shifted the conversation.
Absolutely. Her on the Foreign Relations Committee, I feel like to me, I almost was wondering, is that why, maybe Meghan McCain is smarter than I think she is, and she's like, no, I want to get her off the Foreign Relations Committee because they're going to realize all the bad shit my dad's
that's interesting, yeah.
But, she has such a target on her back, but she kind of is really playing it well, and she's getting the best front runners in the presidential race. Not that Kamala Harris is the best. Obviously, I've said a lot about how her prosecutorial record sucks. But she gave a good response. Bernie gave a great response, and Elizabeth Warren, I feel is still kind of afraid of pissing off the Jewish establishment a little too much. But she stood with her. Yeah. And that was really, really great. So before we go, I wanted to talk about you on Fox News.
Oh, yeah, that was fun.
Katie, you say that Omar's comments are both not anti-Semitic, and you didn't have a problem, I imagine, with the first comments.
No, I mean, I have a problem with smearing her
fine.
as an anti-Semite. She said something, this is how anti-Semitic it was, apparently. She said something that Thomas Friedman, major supporter of Israel, has said. Thomas Friedman said an applause that Bibi Netanyahu received was paid for by the Israel lobby. There's nothing anti-Semitic in there. What is anti-Semitic, though, if you want to talk about anti-Semitic tropes and playing into those, is what Kevin McCarthy, who along with Donald Trump is going after Omar, what he said in a tweet that he deleted. Soros and Bloomberg and Steyer were buying the election. Now, that is an anti-Semitic trope that he definitely played into. He deleted the tweet, but he never apologized. Schumer has said things that are very Islamophobic, for instance, and no one asked him to apologize. There's this double standard.
But no pattern. You see no pattern among some of these newer congresswomen
if you speak out against
who seem
Israel,
to equate money
you're
with
equated
Jews.
with anti-Semitism. Chuck Schumer, for instance, said that there's no peace in the Middle East because Palestinians don't follow the Torah.
Katie.
Of course, we say it's our land. The Torah says it. But they don't believe in the Torah. So that's the reason there is not peace.
Which is theocracy.
The reason why there's a state of Israel is because the Jewish people were almost exterminated from the face of the globe, and they did not have a sanctuary place they could go to have their own state. There wasn't a state for Jews to be able to call their own.
And by the way, it's their, and
by the way, it's their lands. We don't have to agree with absolutely every decision their government makes, but it is wrong to attack them as a people.
Well, no one attacked them as a people, luckily.
I just saw that tweet.
AIPAC. I'm a Jew. I'm a person. No one attacked me because I don't support AIPAC. Millions of Jews don't support AIPAC, and that's why there are all these alternatives.
But this is the problem.
Because Jews like me are really tired of having AIPAC, which is a very small but very powerful elite minority representation of Jews. It's very tiresome to have them claim to speak for all Jews and conflate Jewish identity with unquestioning support of Israel, which is an anti-Semitic trope in itself.
Let me just say this, Laura. This is the big dynamic.
It would be nice if Donald Trump had actually condemned the people in Charlottesville. And you, Matt, you work in this communications,
if I could please just answer.
Why didn't he condemn the people in Charlottesville?
Let's stay.
Okay, you guys, I gotta tell you, guys, stop.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite clips I've seen of a person on there for a while because they have such like a set strategy when you go on there, right? And like and the whole thing is that they basically just overpower you.
Yeah, which is no,
totally.
So what I did was I went on and I kind of forgot I'm going to get in trouble for this because I'm already in trouble for not constantly condemning Glenn Greenwald for going on Tucker Carlson. I think going on Tucker Carlson to co-sign an argument that we shouldn't invade Syria is fine. I think what Angela Nagel did wasn't good.
Exactly.
Yeah, because she's co-signing his racism or co-signing his xenophobia, not a critique that actually is good.
Exactly. And she like betrayed the left to go on there.
Exactly. And while people think Glenn Greenwald betrayed them, he didn't, in that his argument is a good argument. And honestly, the more Fox, I think the left can be very stupid about anti-war organizing. And I think that, the more people hear why we should be skeptical of going to war in Syria, the better.
Right.
And Tucker Carlson's more famous too, so it's not like Glenn Greenwald is elevating him, although people love using that word totally inaccurately. The worst you could say is he's legitimizing him. And I also don't think that that's true either, because I don't think people will sit down and watch, believe Tucker Carlson on other things. And the problem is, where else can Glenn go? You're not going to be able to talk about Russia or Syria with skepticism on MSNBC.
No.
And there's some people,
And he already told off Bill Maher.
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah. Who's like a low-key Islamophobe and just a lib.
Exactly.
But so I forgot that, Tucker Carlson's sneaky, but he has some kind of, we saw him piss off that guy. He has a kind of, he pays lip service to having a kind of discourse or exchange. But Laura Ingraham doesn't at all. She's just steamrolls you. So what happened was I made sure to get out, because I had to have a clip that fit on Twitter anyway. So I made sure to get out a clip of me at the end, because to be honest, I kind of let them, at the very end is when I just threw, and it was, I guess maybe it was strategic because I couldn't get thrown off. Sure. It was the end. So I really just steamrolled through them. And what I should have done, the only thing I regret doing is not earlier on asking him to justify, that guy Matt Schlapp, asking him to justify why Trump didn't mention Jews in his Holocaust commemoration statement, why he didn't condemn, more forcefully condemn, why he did that both sidesism thing. Mm-hmm. And also, I didn't know that at the time, but like, it's so funny. He, I guess, when he talked about, I didn't know this at the time, but I guess Matt Schlapp is really involved in CPAC, and Candace Owens was going to speak there and did speak there. And she, of course, said that she didn't really have a problem with Hitler's nationalism.
It was his
international
foreign policy.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Exactly. It wasn't his domestic policy,
exactly,
which I'm sure the victims of Kristallnacht really appreciated.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Again, but it's just such a again, I think that's a useful thing to point out for people who aren't really necessarily there yet on Palestine. I think it's a good thing for Jews to do, honestly. I know some people think it's selling out, but I think it's good.
I totally agree that you should just get out there as much as possible.
Yeah.
And, don't give all you have to do is just think like, don't give them what they want.
Right.
And represent your views. And yeah, I thought it was really great.
Hey.
As a gesticulating, yes, I have to say, I really enjoyed that because that has been a thing in my life and my family, me and my dad and my uncle and my grandfather. And it's weird. It seems like it's only a male thing in my family, which might be some patriarchy shit I gotta work through later.
Yeah.
I'll go to therapy for it later, guys. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I can work it through anything if I just talk to someone for long.
Yeah, you'll get through it.
But yeah, exactly. But I appreciate that. And if you could just explain to the uninitiated, what is gesticulation?
Gesticulation is a term I made up to describe Jewish gesticulating. And gesticulating is when you use your hands and make gestures. So, yeah, there's gesticulating is something I made up. Then I made up a term called Jew adjacent. Actually, there's a great video I posted of me and Rania where we talk about... it's to use gestures, especially dramatic ones, instead of speaking, or to emphasize one's words. Now, he doesn't do it instead of speaking, obviously, but he definitely does use it while speaking. And so Rania and I interviewed Rania, I did a little video with her, and she mentioned that what makes Bernie unique is that he actually talks about foreign policy because, of course, all the woke Goldman Sachs people, their intersectionality or pseudo-intersectionality ends at the border. They don't even pretend it extends beyond America. And she said, he talks about intersectionality. No one else does that. You won't get that from an Obama, Kamala, Hillary, or Biden, who looks like he may be announcing. And I brought up the fact, I was like, I can't wait for all the people who call Bernie Sanders a misogynist because of his body movement. I can't wait for them to start defending Joe Biden's the countless images and video clips of him being really inappropriate with women. And then we talked about how actually, Bernie's like, he's not touchy. Like he does a very, I think, endearing thing where he and Rania says it's like a burping thing. He puts his hands on people's back or on people's shoulder. But it's not a sexist thing at all because you see him doing it with Bill Maher. You see him doing it like he hugs like Danny Glover, Glover, Danny DeVito, the two Dannys.
Yes.
Yeah.
The two best Dannys.
Yeah, exactly.
I must say. Oh my God. Yeah. I know. I love that. Yeah, and Danny Glover's real big on Lula Livre in Brazil.
Oh, yeah.
I'm all about Danny Glover for sure. Yeah, no, totally. I feel like I have a lot of those traits, particularly the hand motions. Right. People took as sexist because he was kind of yelling too.
Well, that's
him.
It's him, and also he does it to men also. That's the thing. Now, and also I just read an article about it. I couldn't believe it. It was Ms. Magazine, and it literally said, it was because of the way the framing worked. Not metaphorical framing, literal framing of the side by side. He wasn't in her face, but the way that CNN edited, I think it was a CNN thing, edited it, which is that they made them look closer. So when he was gesturing with his finger, it wasn't in her face because they were far away from each other. But it looked like it was going into her space because it would go out of the frame. And they were right next to each other in the frame, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Right. But images would never lie.
Yeah, I know. It's so
There's no
ridiculous.
way. Who are you going to believe? Me or your lying eyes? That is, there you go. That's a way to finish it. That one's for you, Dad. You would always say that, Dad.
That's sweet.
There you go. All right. Well, Katie Halper of The Katie Halper Show and lots of other wonderful publications. Thank you so much for coming on Unpopular Front.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
It.
And I have a piece
Absolutely.
coming up right now, coming up at fair.org, which is a
fair.org.
Yeah.
That's a good place.
And I'll have one at
I read
Paste.
Fair all the time. Paste. That's another. I've had a lot of people from Paste on here.
Oh, great.
So very good. All right.
All right.
Well, thanks.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Talk to you later. Bye.
That was great. Thank you.